Hear that? That's the sound of a patient whose health data is protected from a cyber attack. And that's the sound of a financial system that's digitally secured from bad actors. Right now, there's an invisible war being fought on a digital battlefield that impacts what we do every day. That's why at Peraton, we do the can't be done to help protect the vital systems we rely on. Because if we don't, the alternative is unimaginable. Peraton.
You may know him as John Cross from the podcast From the After Movie Diner, or you may not know him at all, but now you can know him as Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures with the release of his new album, Catch Up or Don't, See If I Care, available now on Bandcamp, iTunes, Amazon, SoundCloud, Google Play, Spotify, and wherever music is found. A full 16 new folk, blues, and rock tracks from this bearded singer-songwriter. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at aftermoviediner.com. For links to the album and to learn more, go to miskplumbingfixtures.blogspot.com or miskplumbingfixtures.bandcamp.com.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur. As always, I am Matt, and I'm joined once again by Jamie. Jamie, how are you this evening?
I'm doing very well. I noticed you didn't say as always. I guess you can't say that anymore.
No, I could say as always.
I did not join you last week.
You had some technical issues. Those things happen. We did all right. We talked about Falcon Rising, but I do one thing I do feel bad about is that the movie we did this week is not. I think last week's movie would have been more fun to discuss than this week's movie.
Well, this week's movie, what is it? Prototype X29A? Am I close?
X2. It's 92 in reverse because it was made in 92, so they just reversed the number to make it 29.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah, which heretofore shall be referred to as my punishment movie.
No, I know. Well,
I fully believe that you assigned this movie as punishment for my not being here last week. And lesson learned.
Let me explain my reasoning behind this movie. I don't know, like when I was going to UNH for grad school, they had this Chinese food place around the corner that was absolutely atrocious. It was some of that really bad and low-end Chinese food that's like most of it you could tell came from a freezer. The gloopy sauces, the gloopy cornstarchy sauces, you could tell had been saved from a couple nights before. It's just really, really bad stuff. But there were just these times where I would just get these cravings where I just needed some Chinese food. And I would waltz over there, get myself, go to their buffet and fill up one of those styrofoam containers, take it home, eat it, and I would just hit that malaise, that just like, what did I do to myself kind of thing, like where you're... You know how Chinese food seems to almost have like a mental effect on you if it's bad. And I'd be regretting it. I was like, did I really need Chinese food that bad? And that's kind of what happened with this movie, where I was just, I was looking for movies for this week, and I was like, I have not, we've been doing new movies for the most part. Everything we've done except for House on Haunted Hill has been, and The Reanimator. Other than those two movies, everything we've done has been, 2010 or after or something like that. And I was like, man, I really want an late 80s, early 90s, low-budget DTV sci-fi actioner. I just want to get back to the old video store days and just do something like that. And unfortunately, it's kind of slim pickings on Netflix for that. But I saw this one with Kato Kaelin, and I thought, you know what? Let's load up the styrofoam container and go for it. And Now it's time for the malaise. So we're in the malaise right now.
Well, malaise is a perfect word. Let me tell you, this movie sapped every bit of energy I had. Um, Brian fell like he was napping,
Mm-hmm.
watching it. I'm like, watch this with me, and he's like, I don't have to watch this, you do. Um, but we were both just sort of slumped on the sofa, just like, and I kept
Yeah.
going, how much time is left?
Mm-hmm.
How much time is left?
Oh.
Really, that long? And
Oh.
it was just, wow.
Oh.
Um, it was just a mental suck.
Oh. It started off good in my mind. In my mind, I like the beginning. Where you've got this machine thing that looks like I don't know, like a bad what would you say? What I keep wanting to say Dalek, and that's the robots from Doctor Who. But no, it's a Cylon. He looks kind of like a Cylon, only like buffer and more cut. Um, but our cyborg guy, and he's going in there and he's shooting people, he's breaking necks and stuff, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be all right. Kato Kaelin's there, he's saying a few crazy things, and then he gets blown up. And
Oh,
that's
because the fool runs right out into
yeah,
the line of fire and just ah!
yeah,
Like, well, they're well trained.
yes.
That's what they are.
He,
Um,
yeah,
I had to
well,
run forward to shoot him. Um, yeah, I was just, what are you doing? Get back, get behind the. I mean, I don't know. I'm not that stupid when I play video games.
right. He just ran out there.
Just ran right out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and and then maybe it was because OJ needed him back there for something. You don't want to, you don't keep OJ waiting. You gotta.
Well, he looked quite different in this film from,
Hmm.
when you the picture that I always have in my mind of him is, courtroom
Hmm.
era, and he looked quite different in this
Yeah.
film. I almost didn't recognize him. It
Yeah.
took the like a profile shot,
Yes.
and I was like, "Oh, holy hell, that's Kato Kaelin."
That's the big K.
And oh, there he goes, because he barely made it past the title card.
Oh, yeah. My Kato Kaelin story, just to do a quick aside, and I'm sure we're gonna have time for plenty of asides tonight with the way this movie was, but when I was in high school, after the OJ thing had kind of run its, well, I guess no, it was still kind of mid 90s, because the trial, the Bronco chase was 94, so this was a little bit after that, like 96, 97, but this was the days of the VCR, right? Which, so many kids that are younger than us, and even people our age, like they act like this was like, the VCR or the VHS was such a great thing, so much better than what we have today. Um, so the way it worked at my house was, our VCR was a piece of crap from like 1989, and the only way you could record a TV show that was past channel 13 on the dial, right? Because it had like the push button thing
Hmm.
that would go from 3 to 13. The only way you could record something that was on a channel above that was you'd have to set your VCR the VCR to channel 3, set it to record at the certain time, and make sure that the cable box was on the channel you wanted and on. It had to be turned on, of course, and you had everything set to go. So there was a Kato Kaelin beach movie that's USA was airing on Up All Night Saturday at 3 a.m. So
Was this Rhonda Shear up all night or Gilbert Gottfried up all night?
Saturday night. So I think that was Gilbert, right? He did Saturdays, I think. So it was of course by 3 a.m. he was done. They weren't even using him anymore. Usually, right?
Yeah,
The 3
yeah.
to 5 slot was like kind of like just like let's get this movie out of here and get on to paid programming at 5 a.m. But I was all stoked. I was like, I got this Kato Kaelin movie. I got it all set to tape. I'm gonna do all this stuff. So I get up at 4:30 to go check on it, and there's my dad in a bout of insomnia watching headline news. So that was it. I got that was when headline news, remember they just did 30 minutes of the same thing over and over.
Hmm.
That's what I got. I got 2 hours of the same headline news thing over and over.
Oh,
Yeah. So that was that's why I love VHS so much. It's the greatest thing ever invented because as opposed to the DVR box where all I would have had to do is type in Kato Kaelin from 3 to 5, maybe give it a 5-minute buffer just to add an extra time in there, and I'm good to go. No. Instead, I've got headline news for 2 hours. So
may have been better. It probably was.
yeah, maybe it was, but I wanted that Kato Kaelin Beach movie. But so that might have been part of the siren song that pulled me into this film as well. Kind of wanting to make amends for that. That time that God smote me. Smited me? What is I? Whatever.
I think it might be smoked.
I'm an English teacher. I should know the past tense of smite, and I'm just I'm at a loss here. But at that point, when he decided that he needed to take me down a peg, and I probably needed it. I was a full of shit, hot shit 16-year-old. He probably needed to take me down a peg. But the point is, I felt like I needed maybe to make amends for that without even knowing it tonight. And again, just like the Chinese food thing, look where it got us. So.
Well, I'll tell you one way it differs from Chinese food. An hour later, I don't want to watch it again.
Good point. Yeah, we're not going back to the fridge for those leftovers. Not at all.
I have sort of a love-hate relationship with dystopian films. I like the idea of a post-apocalyptic world, and there are some that I enjoy, but you have to be really careful because things like this or like Hardware, when the future just looks metal and dirty and but with like poor sci-fi. I mean, like just really bad ideas. Or poorly executed ideas, then I just sort of like okay, for instance, this is a small thing, but you know me, I love noticing the small things. So apparently in this dystopian future, I guess in order to make it look futuristic, they have him sleeping on an on an egg crate mattress. I guess that's supposed to look futuristic, but I'm like, that's not futuristic. He's just missing a bed sheet.
Yes.
But I guess that's their idea. Someone's like, how can we make this look futuristic? Like, oh, I know, have him sleep on an egg crate. Like, no, that doesn't work. That just looks cheap. It just looks like cheap production. And what in the hell was discount Courtney Thorne-Smith wearing? I don't even know what that was, but I wanted her to change her clothes through the entire movie, and she never did.
No.
And like, take that thing off.
Oh my God.
But she reminded me of something with her beret and that little top, and I cannot think of what it was, but it's some specific outfit. It kind of looked like someone had hijacked the cast of New Jack City and took their clothes and stuck them on her.
Yes.
That's kind of what it reminded me of. And then you've got Mark Paul Gosselaar with a Hamlet. A Hamlet? No, a mullet.
A mullet.
Which is what I mean. Obviously not real Mark Paul Gosselaar, but low rent Mark Paul Gosselaar in a wheelchair with a mullet. Which that was one banging mullet, I'm gonna tell you.
That mullet was sweet. The mullitude, I had like an 8.9 on the mullitude scale for that one, and I agreed with you in the Mark Paul Gosselaar. I had him pegged as a cross between Mark Paul Gosselaar and Scott Baio with a dash of Paul Young zest. I saw some Paul Young in there. Now, if you haven't seen the English version, if you go to YouTube and look up Paul Young's Every Time You Go Away, the English version, not the version that we had here in the States where he's doing like concert footage, but their version where he's just kind of walking from set to set, just earnestly singing into the camera, that mullet is up there with. For me, it's in the Mullet Hall of Fame. It's one of the greatest ones. And there's a scene where he's walking through like a rainy part, and they rain on the mullet. And I almost, like the first time I saw the video, because, we grew up with a different version of that video. So when I went to YouTube, it was kind of the first time I'd seen it. This was like a couple years ago. I almost broke down in tears to see what they did to that mullet. To see it just get covered in water and stuff, and I was just like, "Oh, what are you doing?" Because it is just fantastic, and he evokes a little bit of that mullet with this one. It was one of the few bright points in the film for me.
Yeah, as soon as it hit the screen, it woke me up. Briefly, just for a minute, but I was like, "Oh, look at that!"
Yeah.
And then it didn't last, but it was interesting. It was definitely one thing I have to say is this film is without a doubt a product of its time. It is the definition of product of its time.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at this film and know pretty much exactly when it was made.
Yes. Yeah.
And what's sad, though, is that the graphics, I mean, I played video games in the mid-90s that had better graphics than this. And and this is another little thing that just cracked me up, though. In the very beginning, we've got Chandra's father in the bunker, um, on the computer, like doing computer stuff, and it's covered in camo netting inside the bunker. I don't get that. What is so if someone walks in, they're like, "Wow, I thought I heard a computer in here, but I sure don't see one."
Yes, I love that.
I didn't understand that.
Yeah, you live in a crime-ridden neighborhood. You want to lay the camouflage over the computer and all the valuables, so that the
I'm
criminal
gonna start
breaks in.
implementing that. That way if
Yeah,
they ever get burgled, they'll
right.
never get anything.
They aren't. Oh,
They'll
that's
think, who are these people, living like they're in the jungle of Predator,
right. Yes, exactly.
but they won't get any of my good stuff.
Yes. Now, one thing I loved about this movie too is you know how like back then in the early '90s it was like we would watch the inputting of computer information, and what I loved was that they actually used that as a way to tell the story. Like to kind of fill in the holes of the story, it would be like she's just inputting paragraphs of backstory for us to explain what's happening. Um, and of course, that classic typeface. I don't know where that typeface came from, that computer typeface, but
And I noticed that big time when it had like there was a scene where it said warning across the screen, and it looked like it was out of War Games. Um, like who decided? Like who made up the rule that this is the font that
hmm
shall be used in any kind of film like this at all? There's a rule out there somewhere. It's written or unwritten. I'm not sure, but who implemented? But there must be. It's if I have a feeling if I ever went to make a film like this and I tried to use any other kind of font that and have these guys in suits come busting through my
yes.
door and go, no, 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 no,
Yeah.
you're doing it wrong.
Well, that's what I was wondering too. Like, they have the Helvetica documentary, which just kind of sounds boring, but I would love a documentary about this typeface. I mean, maybe it only needs to be 20 minutes long or even 5 minutes. Just, oh, the typeface came from here. That's when people started using it. That would be enough. But
The end.
yeah, at the end, exactly. But this is something the public needs to know. We don't care about Helvetica, but whatever this is called, Cybernetica or Computer Vetica, I don't know what it is. Computer New Roman, I don't know what we call this. But I want to know about this typeface.
Uh, well, overall, yeah, what is happening in this movie exactly?
So this was the best that I could figure out. Is that our bemudded hero here is, I guess, essentially Ariel from The Little Mermaid, and but he's paralyzed, and he wants our low rent Courtney Thorne Smith to fall in love with him. So he becomes a cyborg. He becomes a buff, like a cross between, I guess, the Guyver and a Cylon, is what he is. That's what the cyborgs are. But yeah, so this is his dream, and of course, unfortunately, as the Little Mermaid had to give up her voice to be human, he has to give up his humanity in order to walk, I guess. And so I guess that's what this is a Little Mermaid. Of course, it takes what an hour to get to that plot point.
Yes,
Yeah.
it takes a very long time, and it's between. There were things that I caught uh, leading up to that point. See, that's what I mean, because that's what I got from the film.
hmm
But I thought I must be missing something because that actually shows up way later.
hmm
So what exactly was that first chunk about? I'm not sure. I got some, he was doing some early chat roulette, is
hmm
what
Yes.
what it looks like.
Yes.
It's some um, they had the little back of the neck plug-in ports
hmm
like in Existence, and
Yeah.
then he's doing this chat roulette kind of thing, mixing that with some virtual reality.
hmm
So he's basically doing internet porn.
Right.
Is what is what the idea is there, I guess. Um and of course now what's interesting is that's way clunkier than even now.
hmm
than even the technology that we have now. That's what I really do love about old movies about the future
hmm
is they have everything so clunky sometimes. I mean, you have the two opposite ends of the spectrum.
Right.
You have there's the future that is bright and white and crisp and clean, and everything runs smoothly, and you just have some beep boop 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 beep beep,
Yeah.
that go like that. And then you have the future that's really dirty and gritty and metal, and everything's all duct taped together and with sharp edges, and everything runs really clunky, and that's where this one falls. But it's funny to me because now, just 20 years later, 23 years later, technology is so much further along
Mm-hmm.
than they would have thought. But anyway, so we get some of that. We get some of him talking to her, going, "Things would be different with us if I could walk,"
Mm-hmm.
and um, I never really felt like they would have, though.
No.
I mean, that's not. I didn't. Whenever I saw them together, I never really felt like she was like, oh, if only you could walk.
Yeah.
I didn't. I don't know. Maybe it was there, but I didn't. I wasn't feeling that.
No, she had her own problems, which is kind of what made these two stories not fit. Is that she had other things going on, and she had these two stoic guys who might have been the two coolest guys in the movie. Are two I guess there are Omega men. Not to pull another not to go Charlton Heston on it, but you know what I mean. They were our
Dread guy and Asian guy.
Dread guy and Asian guy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, even in '92. See, that's the thing is that like today, Jen and I were in the city and we passed a couple of white guys with dreads, and back then in like '92, it was still a little bit of a novelty. Where now it's just like you're just a dumb hipster, cut your hair. But back then it was still kind of a novelty. But
Edge.
he's right. It gave exactly. He made him a little. I mean, really, it made him look kind of like he was trying to do Bo Derek in drag. But
Wow.
yeah,
You nailed it. You nailed it right there.
Certainly wasn't a 10.
Oh,
We won't say that.
Bo
But
Derek and Predator.
Bo Derek and Predator. Yes. Mm,
Because he was all buff and big, like
that's right.
like Predator, but he had his Bo Derek hair. And I just picture him sort of sitting off to the side between takes, swinging his head back and forth and letting it slap him in the face.
Yes. Oh, he did. You knew he loved that hair. He just
But anyway, so I'm sorry. So we had those two guys.
Yeah, and they were, I guess, were trying to protect our Lorette Courtney Thorne Smith, who is the daughter of kind of, I guess, the lead of the resistance. And the idea was supposed to be that 20 years into the future, she was supposed to be the one to lead the resistance against the government, who were creating these Guyver slash Cylon slash Darth Vaders.
That's funny because at the end I called him Darth Vader when he took off the helmet.
It was so, oh my God.
And I was like, oh, Darth Vader?
Yes. I know, that was, oh my. That's what I was wondering. Which one did it rip off more? Did it rip off The Little Mermaid or Star Wars? I mean, it was just.
There were a lot, though. I mean,
a lot of rip-offs.
There was some Blade Runner in there.
Yeah.
There was not very good rip-off,
Yes,
but
right.
there was Blade Runner in there. There was some. I didn't even think of The Little Mermaid, which is hilarious. That's exactly what that was, but
Yes.
I didn't think about that.
I mean,
They get pulling shit from all over the place.
I was going to say Sebastian, her adopted younger brother, he was like Sal Minio's character in Rebel Without a Cause, I thought. I could have gone for there. I mean, it seemed like it was just whatever they could throw together here and just, make a movie out of it. I don't know. It was a mess.
So how do you successfully marry this one plot where this girl, because we saw her when she was a little girl and they shuffled her away to keep her safe in the beginning, so she grew up. And, she's supposed to be leading it. I don't see her leading anything, to be honest. But anyway,
Right.
you have this one plot where this is her going on, kind of like a Terminator kind of thing, in a way. And then we have this other plot running simultaneously where this guy's in, which sort of ends up being the main story. How do you make that work?
Yeah.
I guess the answer is you don't.
Exactly. That's what we've discovered here is that you don't. I mean, it's almost as if, and I feel like that, if that was the case, if what I'm saying here is true, it's probably like the height of arrogance, perhaps, but it's almost as if this film was being made with the sequel in mind. And it's one thing if you're George Lucas and you're making Star Wars and you've already got a track record of big screen movies, and even Star Wars itself is kind of a standalone movie. Obviously now we don't think of it that way because the sequels did come out, but it's almost as if now the man who wrote and directed this, Philip J. Roth, is kind of he's produced tons of really great B movies. I've reviewed quite a few, but I'm almost feeling like maybe he thought he had this whole series of prototype movies that he was going to make, and this was just the start. And the problem is it wasn't, it was never going to get there. And the rest of us could see that it was sautéed in wrong sauce, but I guess he was just so buried in it that I don't know. I don't know if he thought he was going to he was going to do the next Star Wars with this, but it wasn't. It wasn't in that I don't know. I didn't see see this having the sustainability to make one film, let alone however many he thought he was going to make after this one.
Yeah, I don't even see how that could have been a. I don't if he was thinking that, I don't get it. Don't get it at all. Because he didn't have enough for even one film here.
Mm-hmm.
Not a coherent one.
No.
Anyway. Because apart from it just being all mishmashy and it just wasn't interesting. Like I checked out quite a bit, and I certainly didn't give a damn about any of the characters.
No, and that's the thing with a movie like this. When you need to take our low rent Mark Paul Gosselaar / Scarpeo / Paul Young, whatever we want to, our bemudded hero as he was, when you're going to turn him into the Guyver / Cylon, you need to do this maybe at the 20-minute mark. If you can't develop his character enough, and the fact that he has a thing for our low rent Courtney Thorne Smith, if you can't establish that enough in the first 20 minutes, then you need to blow it up. You need to do, because it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much. It just takes a couple of longing looks. I mean, actually, it was developed enough, if you think about it, at the very beginning when he gives her the compact, and she acts like she doesn't like it, and then later on, then she leaves the room and shows that she likes it. That's it. We've developed it enough. And maybe in that segment right there where he gives her the compact, she says she doesn't want it, that's when he says, things would be different if I had my legs. And she says, whatever, no, And then the woman comes by and offers him the chance to be a Cylon, a buff killer Cylon who can walk and get the woman he wants. That's when we could do it, right there. 15, 20 minutes in, counting the 10 minutes it took us to kill off Kato Kaelin in the beginning there. That's it. And now we've got this guy romping around killing things, and then we can really get into the action, because the truth of the matter is this story did not, everything that was being unpacked in the story didn't need to be it didn't need to be, forget unpacked, it didn't need to be packed in the first place. There's too much going on here, and we didn't need probably 75% of it.
Yeah, including that little scene, the riveting scene of Tai Chi that we got. That was just a couple seconds long. Like, why are we watching this? What does this have to do with anything?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But then we get to what I thought was kind of fun at the end, is when he's talking to the old doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's like, if I die, will you make another one? And oh my God, his voice was annoying. Mm-hmm. But it's like, if I die, will you make another one? And he's like, yes, I will. And I'm thinking, that's probably a bad answer.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
And then we see that it was.
Yeah.
But the sequence that follows that is so hilarious.
Oh, the chase.
That's it, yes.
Yes.
But even, like, right then, the old guy heads for he heads for the door, and then he does this little runny thing that really is, you could translate it to, let me hurry up and get to my mark.
Yes, exactly.
Because you can see him trying to get to where he's supposed to be standing when Mark Paul Gosselaar shoots. Mm-hmm. Whatever the hell was his name. What was his name?
What was the character? The character's name was Hawkins.
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 Right.
I was calling him Coleman Hawkins, but I think it was something else. And
when Hawkins starts shooting at him.
Yes.
And then of course he runs out and he does this really fantastic blind shooting thing where he's just shooting at nothing behind him.
Yeah.
Then he jumps over this wall and he stands in the middle of this I don't know, pit, crater. I don't know what that was.
Yeah.
But what it was the perfect spot to be standing if you want someone to blow you up. That's what.
Exactly.
But then he's just blindly shooting in a circle. I'm like, God, did they really not even care enough to do more than one take of that? Because anyone who would have seen that should have said, you know what, we kind of need to, since this is the climax of the film,
Yes.
this is the big deal. We need to make it look as good as we possibly can because we don't have much else.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like they said, you know what, we got 5 minutes to go. We need to get this shot in. Just kind of do it, old man.
Yeah.
But I at least I was laughing. That was something.
Well, and then what I love too is that in his cyber view, that's like, I guess, looks like a TV screen or whatever. The replay looked exactly like the real time. It actually wasn't a replay. A replay would be the missile hitting the guy again and blowing him up. But the replay that we actually saw was just the flames in the aftermath. And then it said real time, and it was the same shot. So that was good too. I'm glad that in the future replays means something completely different from what it means today.
Well, that maybe they should have had their on-screen definition thing going for that, like, with deal the cards
Yes.
or shuffle the deck or several other things that they defined throughout the film.
See, that was something that I thought was really cool that they just abandoned. This idea that you can screw with the heads of these Cylon-type creatures by shouting out commands that the thing doesn't understand, right? Because they were saying things like shuffle the deck or deal the cards that were their own code words, and this Cylon thing was just defining them literally. Kind of like my students when they read an idiom and they put it into Google Translate, and Google Translate defines it, literally, as opposed to what our idiom means. And so I thought that was great. And do they do any of that at the end when they're trying to fight this Cylon thing?
Not really. No.
They all it was was that he killed one of our two of our two guys. They killed the one with the buzz cut, but the Dreads guy actually beats him. And then this film does some of the laziest, one of the worst lazy movie tropes I've ever, that whenever I see this, the movie was actually starting to get me back in because we had some cool, it seemed like there were some good fights. The action was a little better. I was kind of like, okay, maybe I can salvage this a little bit and not go so hard on it tonight. But then what happens is that our bedreadlocked, Bo Derek in drag, beats Mr. Hawkins, beats our Mark Paul Gosselaar / Cylon, and is about to rip his head off, which would deal the final blow, when our low-rent Courtney Thorne-Smith walks in and says, "Don't kill him." So, of course, our dreadlock guy just stands there, and then the Cylon, the Cylon in his show of gratitude for not being killed, then kills our dreadlock guy. Like, that is the worst trope. Whenever I see that in a film, when somebody tells either a good guy not to kill a bad guy, and then the bad guy just gets up and kills them anyway, like, that is the grossest thing, that just makes me, oof. And whenever
it's supposed to make you really hate that ungrateful bad guy.
No,
it doesn't do that.
It makes me hate the hero more. It makes me hate low-rent Courtney Thorne-Smith more. It just, that's why Allison gave her such a hard time, or not Allison, that's why Amanda gave her such a hard time at work all the time at Melrose, because that's how she reacted. No, I'm confusing real Courtney Thorne-Smith with low-rent Courtney Thorne-Smith. That's
I don't
not
think
fair.
It matters at this point in either of their careers.
No. Did you ever see Courtney Thorne-Smith in the that Carrot Top movie?
No.
He was like
the board
of chairman of the board.
Yeah.
My little sister used to love that. She was probably 6 or 7, and she thought it was this hilarious movie. And so I would watch it with her. And poor Allison. I was just like, man, I guess they just didn't want to do that Andrew Shue, Courtney Thorne-Smith, Melrose spinoff, It's just, the people at Fox just wouldn't buy it. They wouldn't do it.
Well, are you going to? Do you recommend this film?
No, I don't. maybe the first 10 minutes, the first, see Kato Caitlin bite it and then turn it off. I will say this: if you are saying to yourself, "Man, I just want a bad late '80s, early '90s, you know, sci-fi actioner, like low budget crap deal," um, you know, roll the dice on YouTube. Try to find something on there that maybe somebody uploaded that's like, that Sirio H. Santiago did or something like that. Netflix just doesn't have it, and do not make the mistake that I made. You do, leave, just go right past that Chinese food place, and just wait until you find a good one to get your Chinese food fix, and just go home and make yourself a sandwich. That's my advice. Make the sandwich.
Yeah, I cannot argue with that because this, unfortunately, for me, it was so sapping and so just draining. I can't even say that it was fun in its badness.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy picking out things that were wrong with it. And I really just didn't care.
Yeah.
And poor Brian, the shit that he goes through.
Yeah, I apologize, Brian. I'm sorry, Brian.
Yeah, he's not the one that was being punished. It's
No,
not.
Brian, well, neither of you were. That was it. Again, I went into this with the purest of motives.
I know
And,
it.
and I even have in my notes here because I really liked the first 10 minutes. I liked it so much. I have in my notes here modern DTV versus 90s. And I had in my head this whole big rant that I was going to go on about, how today's direct-to-video is crap, and back then those movies had a certain charm that was so much fun, and, going to the video store and picking out this movie, and I was going to get right up there. I had my soapbox, like, right next to the computer, and I was erecting it. I had, like, the pieces I was hammering and stuff like that, and Jen was getting mad because I was making a lot of noise, building my soapbox that I was going to get on. And then this movie just ground to a halt, and suddenly I just started like ripping the nails out of the soapbox and putting everything away because it just told me like no, I can't, this is not the movie to make that point, because this was the kind of movie that when we were growing up, if you were the one that picked this one out, you lost movie picking out privileges for the summer. Your friends were my friends were always like, if any of us picked one of these ones, that was it. You lost movie. That's it. No, Matt. Every time we would go to the video store after this, they would just say to me, prototype X29A or whatever it was called. They would just say that to me to remind me that no, you don't have a say in what movie we pick out. You've just got to wait for the next person to pick the next dud before you're. Um,
Yeah, I used to have this friend who, whenever we would get together to watch movies, she would always pick it. I mean, he would always pick it out based solely on the cover art, not even the description or any of the words. It was just solely based on the cover art. Well, and this was back mid '90s or so, but back, video videos up to that point had pretty decent cover art, even if the movie was bad. Like it didn't mean anything, because you can sink a whole bunch of money and creativity into making a fantastic poster. That does not mean the movie is going to be good.
mhm.
And can't tell you how many times we ended up suffering because I'm like, can you just at least flip it over? Just to get some of the little screenshots off the back. Maybe that would help some. But no, they're just going straight from the poster. And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Um, so sometimes they were good. But that's the thing, is it's a crapshoot.
Yes.
It's just, you never know. And so I know what you were going for here,
Yeah.
and I appreciate the thought behind it. And I also thought it would be interesting to see Kato Kaelin in a movie. Like, I was like, that was actually kind of a selling point for me. And then he was in it for no time at all, so that didn't help.
No.
Um, so I don't know. It's kind of like, okay, today we watched God Told Me To.
Mhm.
Have you ever seen that?
No. No.
It's a Larry Cohen film
Mhm.
that he did right after he did It's Alive, and it's actually really good. Pretty good. It's kind of weird, but it starts off with it's this cop in New York, and it starts off with this guy, this sniper, who just climbs a water tower and it's an actual water tower, and then he climbs this water tower, starts picking people off, and so the cop climbs up and he's like, "What's the matter with you? Why did you do it?" And then he's like, "God told me to," and then leaps off the side. And then so what you have is you have several different people who just go on these sprees, and every single one of them says, "God told me to." And um but what I'm getting to though is that there was he just got the Blu-ray in for review, which is why we were watching that. But the um he also had the old DVD of it. So he was getting rid of the DVD since he now has a Blu-ray. I was looking at the DVD cover, and on the bottom, across the bottom, it says Andy Kaufman. And I was like, huh. Well, that's weird because Andy Kaufman was in the movie, but he played a cop. They got killed, and he was on screen for maybe a total of like 5 minutes.
Right.
But it was toward the middle of the movie too, and he actually was one of the spree people that ended up getting killed. God told me to that, but I'm like, why are they sticking Andy Kaufman's name at the bottom of this movie when it was because what happened was before I was looking at the cover, when we were watching the film, Brian goes, "Is that Andy Kaufman?" And I was like, "Oh, he even had the mole, so maybe so." And then like he looked him up, he's like, "Yeah, it was him." Okay, well that's how clear it was Andy Kaufman. I mean, it was so, fast, and maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, kind of thing. But this DVD company had it smacked across the bottom. They're like, Andy Kaufman.
Oh.
No. But that's immediately what I thought of when Kato Kaelin got shot up at the beginning of
You
this
were like,
film.
Andy.
I'm like, what?
Yeah. Well, we always think of those bait and switches, and in this case, I think this is what we might call like a posterity bait and switch, where at the time this film came out, nobody cared about Kato Kaelin, so he wasn't splashed anywhere.
Right.
And
right.
then, as time has gone on, suddenly, as far as like
the only person in the movie that you can cling to.
Yeah, the only other person I recognized in the film was the man who led the gang that was attacking the
Yes.
low-rank Courtney Thorne-Smiths. That guy, his name is Marcus Aurelius, and he does a share of bad
I've
directing.
seen, he's in a lot of stuff, and and maybe one other person, like one of the thugs or something. I may have seen in other stuff, but he is really the only other one that I knew.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, I don't know if anyone else ever went on to do anything. If they did, I never saw them.
I mean, nobody has pictures. When you go into IMDb, I mean, now that's not always a good sign because I don't think Cynthia Rothrock has a picture on IMDb either. But usually you can tell if they don't have a picture at all. Usually the picture means that like either they care enough about their career that they want a picture on IMDb, or their agent cares enough about their career. And at this point, for most of these people, I think 20 years later, they probably packed it in. This movie was probably a novelty for them to.
Oh, sure. They each have their own copy at home that their friends and family make them drag out to make fun of them, every few years. And then I'm sure several of them are sitting around and they saw it pop up on Netflix and they're like, oh my God, I'm on Netflix. And then they probably don't watch it because why would you?
Right.
But yeah, it's exactly. I hate that too when I'm going to IMDb to look up something and there's no picture.
Yes.
Especially if I'm not sure about a person or a thing, and I go and I'm like, that doesn't help me at all. I need a picture, damn it.
Yes. Oh my God. I know when I used to do this more often on Tumblr. I had a Tumblr site that was for like indie art house type movies, and I would watch like a Kurosawa film or an Ozu film, and there'd be all of these Japanese actors in it, and of course I'm trying to figure out like based on the character name, and I may not remember it from when I watched it, and I go on IMDb and you just see a whole list of Japanese names, and there's the first few that that I recognize, like Toshiro Mifune or Setsuko Hara, somebody like that, but then like you go down further and it's like, oh man, who is that guy? And then if I tag him or her on Tumblr and I get the wrong name, you're gonna get like 5 messages from people saying, no, you got that wrong, and I don't want to get it wrong anyway, and so it's like, oh, how do I know who this person is? That's I'm no expert, I'm no Donald Ritchie, I don't know everything about Japanese cinema from the 50s and 60s, and so yeah, you want pictures, you want to be able to sink your teeth into something when you go on IMDb.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was I? Oh, one thing I wanted to say quickly when we talk about these people, just doing a movie for the hell of it. There's this ESPN sports college basketball analyst. His name is Jay Billis. He played for Duke. And when he got out of college, he went to law school, became a lawyer, and then started working for ESPN. But in the meantime, before he finished law school, when he was done playing college basketball, he played the good cop or the good intergalactic cop in I Come in Peace, the Dolph Lundgren movie. So that's his only role. He's only ever done that one role. And he was on a sports radio show talking about basketball, and they brought that movie up about him doing a Dolph Lundgren movie. And he said because he got a SAG card for that film that he gets to vote every year in the Screen Actors Guild Awards.
Wow, so just from his one role.
It's one role.
Yeah, I know all it takes. I think it's just you just have to have a line, right? I mean, as long as you have a line in a film, any line at all, then you get a SAG card.
You have to, yeah, or at least you have to have the SAG card before you get the line.
And then if you have a SAG card, then you can vote in the.
Yeah, he says he has his wife do it because he doesn't watch enough movies. So she does his vote for him, but I guess
he's gonna get kicked out of SAG.
Well, I guess what it is he gets like stuff in the mail. He gets promotional stuff and all that, and his wife loves it. She's like, "Oh, look at all this stuff we get," and he's just like, "I did some," in his mind, a crummy. It's one of my favorite Dolph movies. I Come in Peace, but Dolph blows up the bad guy at the end. He says, "You go in pieces," and he says, "I come in
Actually,
peace."
no, I do like that one.
Yeah, that was a great. But yeah, that guy Jay Billis. I remember, when I first watched it, I didn't know who Jay Billis was, but then years later, I watched it again. I was like, Jay Billis, the basketball analyst. That's crazy, and but then, yeah, when somebody brought it up on a sports show, he was like, yeah, I've got a SAG card still. I've never done anything since then. And but yeah, so these people also probably get to vote for the Screen Actors Guild Awards.
Interesting. Well, that's something that they got out of it anyway.
Exactly. It's nice
I guess.
Yes. Now the question is,
either that or it's a really sad reminder of how they're every time
Yes.
the awards roll around and they get their ballot, it's just like, oh, one more year I'm not up for anything.
Yeah, one more year that I'm reminded of, X29A. Well, I guess speaking of us, what did we get out of this movie? Zero.
A nap.
A nap. I almost took a nap myself. That's it. So I know.
Did Jen watch this with you?
No,
Okay.
and no, she's, and that's why she was talking about us doing a little something different for next week because she was just like, I can't. I think she did like the beginning. She had trouble with the part that I enjoyed, let alone watching the rest of it later. So the very beginning of it, she was just like, watching this guy in a suit walk around shooting people, and I think she left just before Caitlin bit it, or maybe right around the time he did.
I consider it's kind of sad, but I was like, God, can't I just bail? Can I just bail and give it an incomplete? And I just, and then I was like, no, I cannot do that. It may, and then besides, I'm always telling myself, it might get better. It might get better. Maybe if I just hang in there, something good will happen.
I'm going to say I thought it did a little bit at the end, and then they did that crap trope of having low rent Courtney Thorne Smith tell Bo Derek and Drag not to kill the Cylon / Guyver / Mark Paul Gosselaar in a mullet, and just decided that was it. It was kind of like, man, yeah, I don't know how to explain that one. I don't know where to go with that one. Maybe like the Chinese food, the bad Chinese food, where you're like, oh, you know what? This beef and mushrooms actually taste pretty good, And then you bite down on a piece of beef that just like has some, crunch that wasn't supposed to be there, and you're like, nope, this is not good.
Oh man, that hard thing.
Yeah.
That puts me off my feet every time.
Yeah.
Actually, I saw this Rosanna Dana on Saturday Night Live did this great bit about that little bite about biting into the little hard thing. And I thought for years, like my entire life, I thought I was the only one. Like I never heard anyone talk about this. This was the only thing. I was like, am I the only one that this bothers? Does no one else suffer from this? But seriously, if I'm eating and I bite into the little hard thing, I'm done.
Yeah.
I can't finish. I'm just like, that is it for me. And I usually don't even want to swallow what's in my mouth.
No. Oh.
And then I saw her do that bit on Saturday Night Live, and it cracked me up. And I'm like, oh, thank God! Not only am I not the only one, but it's a thing.
Yes. I remember when I was growing up, I had a hamburger and it had that, and I pulled the piece out, and it's this like little white piece of plastic or something, and I show it to my dad. I'm like, "What is this?" And he's like, "Oh, it's a meat additive." I'm like, "What?" I'm thinking to myself because I was, I must have been like 10 at the time. I'm like thinking to myself, "What the hell does that mean? A meat additive? Like that shouldn't be there. There shouldn't be any meat additive." I'm doing quotation fingers right now. But
I can hear it.
yes, you could hear the quotation finger exactly. But yeah, I remember when I first saw that sketch as well. Was that when was it VH1 or Comedy Central played the old the '70s Saturday Night Lives?
Maybe Comedy Central.
Yeah, one of those two I remember, and I was like, I saw that whole like you said, and I was like, oh my god, yes, yes, they got your meat additive right here, I'm like.
See, I didn't know. Like, I have heard over the years that it was additives. I've heard over the years that it was or like filler. I've heard that it was cartilage. I've heard that it was like bone fragments, and I don't care what it is. It doesn't belong there.
No.
And I don't want it in my mouth.
No.
And then, it's just like, and if I have, okay, I don't know if you guys have Crystal. It's basically White Castle.
No, we don't have them, but I actually saw on ESPN2 like a while back. Kobayashi was in a crystal eating contest.
Okay, yeah. So,
I
that's
know,
the hot dog guy, right?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
did he dip crystals in water?
They did. It was disgusting.
Oh God,
I
that
made it through like
grossed
5.
me out so much.
Yes.
I can't stand watching that.
I was just so excited about the whole crystal thing. I was like, oh, I've never heard of these before. I want to eat
Well,
these. They look great.
It's White Castle.
Mhm.
I actually think it's better than White Castle, but that's because that's what I grew up with, I guess.
I've never had White Castle either.
I hadn't until I came here,
Mhm.
and I mean, like I spent a lot of time in New York and other places, where are there. I just never had it. But then
Mhm.
when I moved up to Michigan, Brian took me to White Castle just so I could say that I'd been there.
I want to
Um,
go bad. I want to go. The nearest one to us is New York City, and so I want to get up there and get some bad.
well, they are pretty tasty, I have to say. With
Mhm.
their little steamed buns and their um. Always reminds me of Harold and Kumar. Whenever
Mhm. I know. I know.
and every time I watched that, it made me want to go to Crystal because it's
Mhm.
basically the same thing, except that White Castle comes with ketchup
Mhm.
and Crystal doesn't. It's just mustard and a pickle and little onion pieces,
Mm.
and oh, it's yummy.
Sounds good.
But anyway, except for when you bite into a hard thing, which you can do if you eat those burgers. 'Cause I guess I don't know if they use a low grade meat or what, but I don't know. But, anyway,
Yeah,
yeah, this movie is the hard thing,
it is.
and I didn't want it in my mouth.
No, it was. Yeah, this was. I've learned my lesson that doing something for the sake of doing something, or just to scratch an itch or satisfy a need, it's not always the right way to go. So for people out there who are in the same boat, when you're like, man, I want some kind of, it was post-apocalyptic. I like that. I like, again, late '80s, early '90s. Just bringing those VHS memories back. And I realized that just like many people who have this VHS nostalgia, that I too have kind of I don't want to say whitewashed that history, but I've made it nicer in my mind, and I forget that there were many a Friday and Saturday night where there were prototype X29As that made us all very unhappy, and made us just want to get out, hop in somebody's car and run for a late night Taco Bell run or something like that, and get the movie out of our system and watch Saturday Night Live or whatever else. Oh, so I guess this is a no from the two of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think if you probably hear Brian screaming a no from the other room as well.
Yes.
It's this is I would not wish anyone to do this.
No.
Don't do this.
No.
Don't watch this movie.
Yeah, this is one of those ones that I would say in the review, like, I watched it so you don't have to. Yeah, Brian just, all capital letters, all caps there with an exclamation point. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. It's definitely, it is, we watched it. We suffered through it, so you don't have to. And the leftovers are being thrown in the trash as we speak. There will be no going back for more, as you said.
No.
No. Oh, and I mean, but this also, I want to say, this film shows, how you could have all the right parts and it could go wrong, right? You have Kato Kaelin, you have a too sweet mullet, you've got, Cylon/Guyver thing going around blowing people up. It should have worked. The silly, cheesy typeface thing, it all should have worked, and instead it was just, like you said, it was the hard thing, and it was as bad as it could have been.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I guess let's throw this thing in the trash and move on then. So Jamie, what have you got going on right now as far as projects?
Well, I did a guest spot on a show called the Podcast Under the Stairs. That is hosted by Duncan McLeish, who is Scottish.
Right.
And fantastic show. Love the show. And I've been on it several times, and I always enjoy my time there. Talking with Duncan is wonderful. We discussed The Babadook and The Canal. Both really fantastic movies from last year that I enjoyed thoroughly. The Babadook actually was my number 3 for the year.
Oh, of 2014.
Yes.
Mm.
So, and you know what? I recommend that to you and Jen.
The Babadook.
Yes.
Is that the Australian one?
Yes, it is.
Ah, crikey.
And it's really good. So good. And it's very metaphorical and emotional. And it's just wrought with, like, I don't know. It's so good. I recommend that. The performances are fantastic.
Okay.
So anyway, we talked about that, and we talked about The Canal. Another really good movie. And that was a fun show. So that's out.
Okay.
And people can find that on Legion Podcasts. That's the Podcast Under the Stairs. Also, Evil Episodes is out there. We've been keeping up to date on horror TV as it happens. And we recently covered Darknet, this Canadian series that was 6 episodes long, and you can find it on Netflix.
I was going to say, I thought I've seen it on there.
It is. And it starts out really strong and then it doesn't stay that way.
Yeah.
But you can hear a discussion about that if you go to Evil Episodes, which is also on Legion Podcast. And then there's the Skeleton Crew. We just did our Horror 101 episode, which was really fun to do. And that might be all I have right at the moment.
Now, that one's Horrorphilia, right?
Yes.
Skeleton Crew.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I do have to say though that if anyone does go to check out that the Skeleton Crew show, in the beginning I flubbed, and it's a big one, and I'm gonna have to do a retraction. But we were talking about the beginning of horror, like basically that episode discusses trends in horror over all the years and how that changes from over the decades. Like the big bug movies of the 50s, and then on up into like the spate of remakes that we had, and the Asian invasion, and the the slasher run in the 80s, all of those things. But we started out with a very brief discussion about literature, and I made the erroneous statement that Bram Stoker's Dracula and Mary Shelley's Frankenstein were written at the same time over the weekend, and I've since realized that they were not. It was The Vampire that was written the same weekend as Mary Shelley's Frankenstein by Polidori, and and let me tell you, people love to call you out.
Oh, they do, don't they? Oh, they can't call you out. Like I said about the Japanese names and Ozu films, they can't call you out quick enough.
When you said that, I thought about that immediately.
Oh, they love
I know
it.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yes. Oh, God.
That's my favorite thing.
Yes.
And it's fine. I screwed up, and I fully admit that. And that was wrong on my part. I just was talking and going by a memory that was obviously wrong. And so I'm going to, on our next show, I will make a correction and make everyone happy. But I mean, I hate doing that. I don't want to give incorrect information to my listeners. I never want to do that. So, and I appreciate people who will catch me and let me know. I just think it's really funny that you won't hear from anyone about
No.
anything. But then all of a sudden, like you do, like you say something wrong, and everybody's like, they can't get to their keyboard fast enough.
Oh, they can't.
Yeah.
They can't. I know. It's amazing. You tag something wrong, you do. Oh, they are just like I'm telling you with my blog, Direct to Video Connoisseur. There was a period of time, probably like the late 2000s. Because I started in '07. I want to say like '09, 2010. To kind of spice things up, because I was doing like four reviews a week at that time. I had a lot of time on my hands. But for Fridays, I was doing what I called a wild card post, where I would just review either a box office bomb, or like a film that did well in the box office, but kind of had a DTV type feel to it, or just anything I wanted to try out. It was a wild card post. And you don't know how many people will find my blog now, right? See one of those posts, and of course they aren't, in the milieu of what the wildcard post was 5 years ago, or 4 year, whatever, and they're just like, "Oh, this isn't direct to video. I saw it in the theater. I remember it came out." I was like, I don't know if you saw in the post that I said it was in the theater. I don't remember if
No, they don't read it.
no.
I'm not gonna read it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, yes, most of the movies on here, I call myself the direct-to-video connoisseur. It's a tongue-in-cheek, I wanted to kind of evoke this image of Aleister Crowley, or not Alistair, Alistair Cook, drinking cognac in his ascot and smoking jacket while watching a Dolph Lundgren film. That was kind of the joke. I wasn't like, making it sound like I'm Mr. Connoisseur, like I know these films better than you. But it became that. People have taken it that way, that I'm uptight. But yes, that's like the big thing they like to do, is tell me that these movies came out in the theater, and it's like, yes, I review some that, I had a rule that if the movie made more than 10 million in the box office, I wouldn't cover it. And then I get so many people that come to me and say, but Matt, 10 million means something different now than it did then. You should just do this one or do that one. I really want to see what you think of this one, even though it was in the theater. And so then I review it, and then 3 years later I get a comment, oh, this was in the theater. And so it's like you said, you're right. People just they can't wait to get in there and correct you. But yeah, you won't hear from them about how they enjoy this or that. So I guess you just gotta be happy that they're listening at all. I guess I don't know.
Well, that's true. At least they're paying attention.
Yeah.
And like I said, I the last thing I want to do is give wrong information to people who take the time out to listen to one of my
Right.
shows. So I really don't. I'm not angry about the fact that people are pointing it out. I want you to call me on it. If I
Yeah.
screw up, then call me on it.
Mhm.
It's just funny to me
Yes.
that it's just like all of a sudden I'm just get these floods, and I'm like, wow,
Yes.
I know.
I know. Oh my God, I know.
Ah.
Oh, it's.
But anyway, so that's about it for my shows right now.
Well, yeah. So I have been still, even with the Patriots winning, the craziest Super Bowl ending, the one that I never saw coming, happening Sunday. Even with that win, it's not like I necessarily partied, but I did put down two Italian hoagies that I made myself, and that kind of put me down for the count. So Monday I was kind of feeling it. I was a little out of it, and then of course Jen and I were kind of relaxing because she didn't really get to usually we spend Sunday together, and of course because of the Super Bowl that was taken up. So we spent a good portion of Monday together, but I still was able to hold to my New Year's resolution. I got a blog post up on In the Name of the King 3, which is the one that I did the podcast of while you were moving to Michigan. So,
Good for you.
yeah, I figured I would review that one because, again,
Even in your hoagie stupor.
even in my hoagie super, because it was a very, the film was just, it didn't have a lot going on, and I figured it would be a quick post, which it was. And actually, I already know what next week's one is going to be. It's going to be Erased, the one that we saw with Aaron Eckhart.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, well, what happened was, so Monday, I had some time to kill. After I had gotten the post up and was kind of just looking around, I was looking for films for us to watch this week, and that's when I saw that Erased was being erased or being removed from Netflix. So I was like, okay, I better get images of it now, and then we'll just bang that one out on next Monday. So hopefully, time-wise, I'll be right there with it, and we'll get that blog post done. And hopefully we can keep with this New Year's resolution. But so far, so good. We've been getting at least one post a week in, which, I'm hoping to sort of keep that process going. Cross our fingers here, but,
Well, good on you.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. Boy, I'm trying to think how long I went between posts during the fall there. It was like once it stops, that's it. You lose the momentum.
It's very difficult to get back in the swing of things once you stop. It's kind of like if you're working out and like you're going through this long period of working out regularly and then you get sick.
Yeah.
And so you can't work out for like a week. And then getting back into it is very difficult. It's just like anything else,
Yeah, and I think that, what we have here with this podcast, it's so easy. Now one of the things I want, if people are listening and you have any tips, my friend Ian has been listening recently. He said sometimes there's some noise level issues, and I've been trying to fix that where to try to get your level and my level equal when we speak. 'Cause I think sometimes I'm a little louder, but for the most part, other than that, really, I mean, these things are just set it and forget it. We record the podcast, we watch the movie, record the podcast, and then that's it. It's all ready to go. Whereas, like, typing the review can be a little bit more time consuming. Putting the links in, the pictures, all of that stuff.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. These, it's, but what I like about these is, there's a schedule. We know, 8 o'clock, we'll try to do it. And it's kind of like, it gives me a whole set of films that I can review later as well, because I've already watched them. I have my notes from when we watched them. So it helps. It's kind of helped me to get back into writing it, which has been good to kind of have two avenues like this for that.
Yeah, right on.
Wow. So.
Well, what are we telling the people what we're doing for next week?
Well, we could, yeah. So, I mean, we haven't quite decided on the film, or have we? Are we going to go Dean Cain?
I think that sounds good.
Yeah, so what we've decided for next week, because it is Valentine's Day week, we're going to do a Lifetime movie based on a romance of sorts.
Hear that, Brian? I know you're excited.
Yeah, so we're going to look at the Lacey Peterson, or is it the Lacey Peterson story? Is that what the film is called, or it's
The Perfect Husband?
I think with Dean Cain, where he plays the Peterson. So yes, and Jen has been excited about this as well, because I think this movie and maybe even Falcon Rising, she wasn't really, this is one that she can enjoy with us as well. We know that this is not going to be a prototype X29A. If even if it's bad, at least she can get involved. So I think she wanted to do one with us, and I thought, hey, Valentine's Day week is the perfect time to do kind of a Lifetime romance type movie.
Yeah, and nothing fits the bill like that.
Exactly. Well, I gotta say too, because you sent Jen and I a message on Facebook about the Lifetime movies that the made-for-TV movies that you had been watching, and I think that kind of piqued our interest as well.
I was all about you guys when I was watching it, because I've been going through some really bad insomnia. So that I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning scanning YouTube for movies that I haven't seen in a long time, like Kate's Secret, the Meredith Baxter Lumia movie, which is great. Who is Julia, which was this Mayor Winningham flick where and Jeffrey DeMunn is in it, and I forget what's his name? The Simon and Simon guy, not the blonde.
The one with Gerald McRaney?
Jameson Parker.
Oh, Jameson Parker, okay.
And that's a really fun movie. It's on YouTube, and I remember when that originally aired, and so I've been sitting up scanning YouTube, just thinking of old movies, like old TV movies, and every time when I found him, I've just watched a bunch of them in a row, and like some really like bad babysitter movies, like The Babysitter with Stephanie Zimbalist, and so I'm sending you guys messages, and I'm like, I'm watching this now, and it makes me think of you guys, because I know that you'd appreciate them too.
Oh, definitely, yeah. Jen was looking to see if she could find Mother May I Sleep with Danger, but we didn't see it anywhere. So if anybody listening out there, if you find not necessarily download one, but one that's like on a nice screening site where it's not gonna kill our computer with viruses, that would be awesome to check that one out. But but I think this is gonna be a good one. I think Dean Cain, nothing wrong with a little Dean Cain in there.
Oh, certainly not. And I just saw him on Shark Tank of all things. There was an inventor who came on Shark Tank, and Dean Cain. He was a suit guy who invented this suit thing, and then Dean Cain was one of his models.
Nice.
I was like, well, how weird is that? But
That's
I mean,
awesome.
well, so what's he doing now?
Oh, that's good. So I can't wait for this. This is going to be a fun one. Yeah, just a little departure. And, why not? Just fit something in. If we're going to do Valentine's Day, let's do it right.
For Valentine's Day.
Exactly. Exactly. Excellent. Well, I guess we're just about out of time, so we might as well wrap it up here. So look forward to seeing everybody next week. And we're going to, curl up with your loved one and get ready for a nice romantic episode of the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur, where we look at the Lacey Peterson story.
That's right. We'll see you then.
All right. Have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
You may know him as John Cross from the podcast From the After Movie Diner, or you may not know him at all. But now you can know him as Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures with the release of his new album, Catch Up or Don't See If I Care. Available now on Bandcamp, iTunes, Amazon, SoundCloud, Google Play, Spotify, and wherever music is found. A full 16 new folk, blues, and rock tracks from this bearded singer-songwriter. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and at aftermoviediner.com. For links to the album and to learn more, go to miskplumbingfixtures.blogspot.com or miskplumbingfixtures.bandcamp.com.
When you shop at a Walmart Vision Center, you get it. You know that you'll spend a little less on stylish glasses for the whole family.
Welcome to the Vision Center. Let me know if you need help finding the perfect frames.
Hey, Mom, you were right. These glasses are cool.
Hon, they take our insurance. That means Papa's getting a new pair, too.
Whoa, glasses start at just $39. Next stop, groceries.
So you can get a little more of what you need. Find a Vision Center near you. Save money, live better. Walmart.